I think women are just a bit embarrassed to talk about some of these things. There's some derogatory terms which I think really should be done away with. So for example, she's crazy because it's that time of the month. She's always on MC. I don't know whether the period pains are true or not. And of course, she's so menopausal.
My period started to get more painful when I was in uni. First of all, I'm using minimum 7 pads a day on the toilet for 1 full hour, just bleeding there. Obviously, you were also just in pain the whole time. It's not just pain here, your back also aches. I was starting to wear overalls and use these hot water bottles. I would stuff it in front and in my back and just walk around like that. And then people would laugh, you look pregnant, that kind of thing. But then that was the only way I could cope with the pain. Hi, I'm Bianca and I have endometriosis.
I'm June. I'm a senior consultant at a large tertiary teaching hospital where I practice anesthesiology and intensive care. I was also past president of Association of Women Doctors and past president of Singapore Council of Women's Organisations.
I remember when I was working, my manager asked whether I can come in tomorrow. And then I was like, no, my period is starting already. I say I cannot. And then he just puts me in anyway. And then I was just like, okay, fine, I'll try. But then the next morning, I really cannot make it lah. He gets a bit annoyed also. I feel bad about that. But also at the same time, you should have just taken me seriously, from the very beginning.
The most difficult part of being a woman is when you're perimenopausal, when you undergo menorrhagia, then there's just blood everywhere. It's so ridiculous. I can't say, hey, everybody stop, I need someone to cover me because I need to go to the loo. And then you can't do that every 2 hours. It's so unprofessional.
I first went to an obgyn at Mount E because of my super bad period pains. She did put me on birth control. I took it for quite some time, maybe 2-3 years. Through the routine ultrasound, I think she did find that I had polyps, so I did a D&C procedure for that. She told me that my endometrium lining was abnormally thick. She said maybe other people are 8 mm thick, and then mine was 18 mm, so mine was more than double. I googled that later on and then kind of read about endometriosis. I had one hospitalization, which was a UTI and kidney infection. That was when I found out I actually had a fibroid and it was 5-6 cm big. They suggested perhaps I should just remove the fibroid because it could have been the cause of my UTI, and also make sure that you won't get kidney infections again. Kidney specialists happened to be from a different hospital altogether, so this is how I met my second gynecologist. And then I did tell him that I did suspect that I have endometriosis. He was like, I don't know, we'll see. So he happily took on the surgery for me to take out my fibroid, right? When he came out, he was just like, oh my god, your uterus was stuck to your large intestines, and then it was a wall, and he said his eyes were tearing up from lasering everything. He knew that I had endometriosis. I knew and suspected it already. I was suffering so much, and nobody believed me or nobody really took me seriously about it.
There's some derogatory terms which I think really should be done away with. So for example, she's always on MC. I don't know whether the period pains are true or not. And of course, she's so menopausal. We really shouldn't be using these terms and feeling more empathy for women who are undergoing these changes, which are invisible to the rest of the people around them. So for my job, right, I am actually in the operating theatre for many, many hours. We don't always get long breaks. So as a woman, if you are facing certain problems, for example, cramps, it's even difficult for me to voice out these challenges that women face at the different stages of their lives.
I think medical practice in general, even for gynecologists, male or female, they can still be dismissive about what women suffer from. And it's very strange because endometriosis is fairly common. It's not 1 in 100,000 or 1 in a million. It's 1 in 10 that's very common, right? One of the hallmarks about it also is the fact that people don't find out about it until 10 to 20 years later from the beginning of their periods, which is very long compared to any other disease. So that just means that they don't care enough. Yeah. Meeting my endometriosis specialist, Dr. Mali, she just got me onto the bed and then she inserted her fingers into my vagina. I was like, whoa, I didn't expect that. And then she's like, yeah, I can feel something. And that was it. That was how she knew. There was also an ultrasound first and she could spot something also, which I was very surprised by because all the other doctors said you cannot find out about endometriosis through ultrasound either. You can only find it through laparoscopy. That was how she diagnosed it. Yeah, I was like, this is mind-blowing.
When I said pushing awareness of all these women's issues, I don't just mean to the general public. I also mean to perhaps our general practitioners, polyclinics as well, because this is usually the first port of call. For women who plan to have kids later in life because they have put their career as a priority, there may be fertility issues. Yes, it took quite a while before I was able to have a child. These are the things, right? When you put your career first, then infertility may become a problem, and that comes with a whole gamut of issues, both mentally and socially as well. AWDS, Association of Women Doctors, was formed in 1998 by a woman I admire very much, Dr. Kanwaljit Soin. One of the reasons the association was formed was because there was a quota on the intake of women medical students. So there was only 30% of girls in my medical class. I practically had to assure them that my career would come first, and I wouldn't waste the bond, and kids in marriage would have to take a second place to the career.
I found out that the way to get rid of endometriosis, you have to excise it, which is to slice off the tumour and not just burn it. So that's why it continues to stay and continues to grow. Dr. Mali also referred me to a colleague, a colorectal specialist. So he's like, yep, this big mess over here. You definitely have the disease in your rectum as well. So we would have to cut this part off of you. That was like, oh. So I was like, I was prepared for endometriosis excision surgery, but I was not prepared for surgery for my bowels as well, to cut off a part of my rectum. He told me that I would have to have a stoma. So your digestive system just ends at the small intestine and it just comes out of you in a bag. And it's literally an internal organ, but it's outside of you. I would have to live with that for at least 3 months while the resection at the rectum heals. The whole general term for it is deep infiltrating endometriosis, and then the acronym for it is DIE, die. It was definitely tough. Post the first surgery was very, very painful for me. I couldn't walk for a few days, for example. Yeah, I just felt very vulnerable during that period of time. The very first time that I was changing my stoma bag, I accidentally scratched it. I didn't even realize it. This pink flesh, right? It started bleeding, and then I just panicked. I was like, oh my god. We learned that it was fairly normal, and actually it wasn't painful. It was just it was shocking to me because oh no, this is my internal organ. I'm making it bleed. Then obviously there was spillages just on my bed, and even someone else's couch, and that was so embarrassing. And I was just like, oh no. I found out especially during uni how sheltered men were. Something as simple as periods, people don't talk about it enough. Period pains, how come men don't know about it enough? They will have partners or they have sisters that go through this, and then you should know that these things exist. You never know when a disease or illness hits you, and then you don't know how to deal with it because you were never educated about it in the first place.
I think that a lot still needs to be done. I don't feel there's enough awareness about all these different issues women face at the different stages of their lives. For example, even at my workplace, I don't think I would be able to talk openly about it without my male colleagues cringing with embarrassment. Yet again, right, menopause is a fairly invisible condition, but carries with it a lot of mental, physical, physiological changes as well. There's very little awareness of it, and I think it attracts very little attention as well.
Invisible illness is definitely something that I do care about a lot as well, and people think of disability only as like amputation or you're in a wheelchair, like a very outward kind of thing. A lot of people do struggle with a lot of things that people can't see. Like even if it's not from a period, if you were bleeding anywhere else, you had an opening somewhere and you were like constantly bleeding from it, you would want to take a break from life. You should. Why would you exempt people who have menstruation from that?
I think it was a big topic then, and I think it's still a big topic now. Mindsets haven't changed that quickly, especially in, I think, the context of our Asian culture. When there's more awareness to these changes that women's bodies are going through, then we are not so likely to be self-conscious and we'll be more comfortable with ourselves.